Okay. And on the sanctions relief for Venezuela, why is it that President Biden would rather let U.S. companies drill for oil in Venezuela than here in the U.S.?
That's
Our lead story of the day is the gladiator, Peter Doocy of Fox News, questioning John Kirby regarding China, oil, climate change. He gets a litany of questions out here, folks. As always, again, hit that like and subscribe button. Without further ado, let's go ahead and roll the tape.
So just to follow up, John, on the China issue, why is the White House's line that everybody has the right to peacefully protest and not the U.S. thinks it's bad to lock people up in their houses to stop COVID?
we've made it clear, Peter, that a lockdown is not a policy that we're going to support here. We've come a long way over these last 3 years. Hard to believe, 3 years in terms of treating COVID and preventing COVID. So we've said, a lockdown is not a policy that we support here. But obviously there are people in China that have concerns about that, and they're protesting that, and we believe they should be able to do that peacefully.
Okay. And on the sanctions relief for Venezuela, why is it that President Biden would rather let U.S. companies drill for oil in Venezuela than here in the U.S.?
That's not an accurate take on the president's view.
Earlier this month.
What? Talk about gaslighting, folks. This is ridiculous. He definitely would rather go drill in a dictatorship in a socialist country, Venezuela, than increase oil production here in the United States. But I guarantee you, he's going to sit there and be like, well, we have permits, and they could just use those permits. Because that's the narrative of the Biden administration, and it's been the narrative since day one. You got it from Jen Psaki to Karine Jean-Pierre to John Kirby to Joe Biden himself, even though Joe Biden has literally said multiple times, not just on the campaign trail, but also as president, that he doesn't want to increase drilling. No more drilling. Wants to put the fossil fuel industry out of business. He's been clear about it. And this guy's going to sit here and gaslight us like this? Typical.
He said no more drilling. There is no more drilling.
The president has issued 9,000 permits for drilling on U.S. federal land.
Somebody looked that up because I don't think it's 9,000. There is over 9,100 permits out there, but I don't think Joe Biden has issued 9,100 permits. I think in his first year, this is pulling it off literally the top of my head, I want to say it's like 3,100. He did surpass Trump in terms of signing permits, and some of those permits were not just federal, but they're actually mostly, I believe, the vast majority of them public lands. Somebody check that out and put in the comments below, but I'd be shocked if it was 9,000.
Peter, 9,000 of them being unused. There are plenty of opportunities for oil and gas companies to drill here in the United States. I'll let Chevron speak for this particular issue of sanctions relief, but our expectation is it won't be a lot of oil coming out of there. It'll all have to be shipped to the United States.
Does the president?
You got to love that messaging. And I also love the fact that they keep pushing this, again, 9,100 permits. They could just drill everywhere. Sometimes, and we've talked about this at length on the Bald Brad show here, is that just because there's 9,100 permits doesn't mean all those 9,100 are going to actually be productive in producing oil. Some of them just do that to just scour the land to make sure that land is actually acquired or that permit's actually acquired, whether there's oil there or not. They do that to sit there and kind of show the competition and have the competition themselves take out more permits to invest certain areas in the sector of the United States that allow this oil drilling to take place, to offset each other. I mean, there's so many reasons as to why they pull these permits, and for him to go, well, they're just not using all of them, as if all of them could be utilized. I mean, it's so frustrating.
I didn't think there's some benefit to the climate to drill oil in Venezuela and not here.
No, it has nothing to do with a benefit to the climate, Peter. Again, there are 9,000 unused permits here in the United States on federal land that oil and gas companies can and should take advantage of. 9,000. And we're talking about one there in Venezuela. Now, look, it remains to be seen how much will get drilled down there. It'll be up to Chevron to decide that, Peter. But as a function of the sanction itself, that oil, whatever product is drilled, has to come to the United States.
So screw climate change. All of a sudden, climate's not an issue. Oh, that's not a problem. That's not a part of it. All these things. Because there's a clear narrative coming out of the administration that we need to get rid of all fossil fuels. We need to make sure electric vehicles are the only new vehicle sold in the state of California. They want to sit there and make everything wind and solar. For the love of God, for the life of me, I still don't understand that. I'm all for breathing clean air, but for you to try and sit there and expedite this whole thing and get rid of fossil fuels, not increasing domestic oil production, you'd rather go to these other countries to get it when we can be self-sufficient, it's just idiotic to me. I mean, the fact that they want to sit there and run all these solar and wind, which we know can't, I mean, literally mathematically, it's not possible. And I love that they're all for the climate. They don't want to sit there and hurt the land and the animals and the trees and the vegetation and all this other stuff, even though the amount of land that you need to take up to utilize solar and wind is insane. You're talking a matter of the size of states, but they don't want to talk about that, folks. They don't want to sit there and actually talk about and have the conversation about nuclear power that's clean, that actually is efficient, that can power a lot more than wind and solar. They don't want to have those conversations. There's an agenda here, folks. There's an agenda all the way down to the Great Reset. The Great Reset is this concept by Schwab and Davos and the rest of the elites to sit there and make sure that on a macro and micro level that they could sit there and track everything that you do, your carbon footprint. And based on your carbon footprint, you're going to have a score, almost like a video game, to where people will stop lending you money. People will lend you money. You're not allowed to open up a business. You can open up a business. They're going to dictate whatever you can and cannot do based on your carbon footprint, from the amount of stuff that you're purchasing to the amount of carbon that you're emitting, folks. This stuff is wild. They have an agenda, and we got to wake up to it. It's not a conspiracy theorist anymore. Literally, banks are using an environmental score, an ESG score right now, per you and a bunch of others. And what are they going to do with it later, folks? They're going to do something with it. And the theory is that they're going to sit there and basically enable you to lend, or should I say offer you money to take out stuff for a loan, whether it's a student loan, finance a vehicle, a mortgage, whatever it is, or they're going to not allow you to do that based on your score. A lot of possibilities here, but as you can see from the Biden administration, they're going to go straight towards this whole thing of like, there's 9,100 permits. They can utilize all these. They can increase domestic oil production, yada, yada, yada. Even though they're not calling the elephant out in the room that the Biden administration wants to put them obsolete. The Democrat Party, half of America, wants to put them obsolete, out of business. Why would they make that investment in the first place if you know that an administration that half of the country, half of Congress wants to make them obsolete? You tell me why they would want to go make that type of investment. You go tell me why they would want to take out that insurance. You go tell me all these things, but they don't. They have a talking point here, folks. The talking point is they can use them, and they should use them, even though Joe Biden has been clear on what he wants to do. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.